favorite booktube. Welcome to my channel, Hamsavahini Vajra Astra. I'm Ohana. Today's video is about Victober, and this is the second video that I'm making on Victober. Now, Victober commenced from the 1st of October 2020 and will continue till the 31st of October 2020. This video has been brought about and hosted by Katie from Books and Things, Lucy from Lucy Reads, and Kate from Kate Howe. And I have posted a link to the announcement videos in the description box below. Now, today I'm going to talk about Lucy's challenge, which is to read a set of Victorian letters or to read a Victorian diary. Now, Cassandra is Miss Florence Nightingale's way of trying to awaken the sleeping Victorian women who, in her opinion, could have done much better with the time that they had in hand. So I have penned down some of my thoughts as I had in Aunt Eb's diary as well. Now, in this particular work, the first concept that Miss Florence visits is the concept of vain imagination in the Victorian era women. So Florence Nightingale talks about three crucial elements in Victorian women, which though cannot be exercised in the Victorian society, yet have to be inherently a part of every woman's life, which were a woman's interests or passions, a woman's intellect, and her moral activity. Now, Miss Florence always knew that women seek a companion for their every thought, and the companion they find not in reality, they seek in fancy. And if not in fancy, they absorb themselves in endless conversations which might stir events and circumstances to the point that it might become gossip. The Victorian parents used to see their daughters being raised properly and nurtured for the best in society, yet Florence used to be more interested in the most usual thought and countenance of a Victorian-era daughter while performing her most basic daily activities of learning the languages and musical arts. What thoughts did such a daughter have in mind while practicing singing or reading a review, or was busy embroidering? According to Miss Florence's observation, one daughter might be fancying herself nursing some new friend in sickness. Another would be engaging in romantic dangers with him. A third would be undergoing unheard trials of someone she has chosen as the companion of her dreams, and another dreaming of a loving and a loved companion in life. And all of this is but natural and inevitable, and these Miss Florence termed as vain imagination. So the next concept which Miss Florence centered her work around was, what are the remedies and measures taken by Victorian women against the so-called vain imaginations, and it especially once it has been pointed out and accepted. So what Miss Florence observed and what she herself went through was Victorian women used to fast mentally, used to scourge themselves morally, and used to use the intellectual hair shirt just to subdue the idea of a wandering mind into vain fancies, praying and making notes in a diary to record the number of times the mind meandered into a narrow alley of whimsical fancy, especially after an acquaintance with the opposite gender. Now, Miss Florence observed that the root cause of these blind wanderings of the women's mind were the lack of an inspired engagement to a dedicated cause, which would make a fruitful contribution in uplifting any section of the Victorian society, and that in itself will evoke an undeniable responsibility within women, which would engage the mind, body and soul to an extent to include the three undeniable virtues mentioned before, which would fuel Victorian women to have a wiser footing amongst the men in the Victorian society. And these virtues would be: for womanly passion and interest, there would be a dedication to a fruitful cause. For women's intellect, there would be a creative pursuit or productive engagement in uplifting the society. And for the moral activity, the application of God's will to their cause and work. Now, Miss Florence always believed that it is better to have pain in life than to lead a paralyzed life with no substance. I'll just rephrase that again. Miss Florence always believes that it is better to have pain in life than to lead a paralyzed life with no substance. The quality of life which Victorian women led was, though polished and composed qualitatively, yet the underlying substance and amount of active contribution to the society's upliftment was negligible, and this was a matter of anguish, generally speaking, to an intellectual woman's dignity. So, therefore, based on these concepts, Cassandra was framed, especially when Florence herself went through most of these meanderings, as well as she tried to correct herself, and she also observed other women of her footing in the society, and therefore Cassandra was coined. Now, Cassandra was written in 1852, at a time when Florence herself was in bitterness of anguish, not having a purpose to utilize herself in a more contributive and substantial component of the society and to adhere to the will of God for her. Now, Miss Florence made a significant self-discovery after penning down Cassandra, which was a work of despair and anger, and this has been explained very well by her biographer, Miss Cecil Woodham Smith. And to know more about Miss Cecil Woodham Smith's biography of Florence Nightingale, I would request you to check Janelle's video from the channel TooFondOfBooks, because Janelle has spoken in length about this particular biography of Florence Nightingale. I have posted a link to this particular video of hers. Basically, Janelle and me had participated in the Nightingale August Challenge, which had been dedicated to Florence Nightingale's life and to all the nursing health services contribution all across the globe, especially during the pandemic. So during this a challenge, we had read a lot about Miss Florence Nightingale. So this particular biographer, Miss Cecil Woodham Smith, her work had been read by Janelle, and I would suggest please take a look through this video, because she has explained in brief but wonderfully about Miss Florence's life, as well as the significant aspects which shaped her motivation towards nursing, and you would find much more in it as well. Now, this was all about how Miss Florence has been portrayed by Cecil Woodham Smith. However, let's get back to Cassandra, which is Miss Florence's work, written work that is. Now, Cassandra is more about the status of women in the Victorian society and how they were needed to align their lives to fit the needs and expectations of a domestic life and sacrifice their intellectual ability, passionate interest and religious moral duties around societal gossips, men's attention and their acclaims and accolades and their judgment, and spending their life in domestic servitude of no value to the society's upliftment and service. Being a centre stage of their own boring and domestic life, the Victorian women were denying the fact that they also had the responsibility of morally upholding the wisdom manifested through contributive service, which was in accordance to God's word. So this was something which Cassandra, the work Cassandra really spoke out in length. And Cassandra today is regarded rightfully as a political work amongst the Victorian feminist classic. In Cassandra, Miss Florence points out that Victorian era, which was moving towards the progressive new world, had a society divided broadly into two classes. The first class, those who take the best society offers, and the second class, those who aspire towards betterment and upliftment of the society and its perfection from the current standards, and hence adopt the creative pursuit to contribute new aspects of reality to the society. Now, these two classes in Miss Florence's views are very much interdependent on each other for their survival and nurturing. Women of the Victorian society are naturally educated to adhere to the disciplines of a domestic life and compete for its security, which is completely based around the marriage she secures. Miss Florence wanted to engage more thoroughly on the Victorian women choosing to be the second class of people in the society, to adhere to their independent streak of genuine aspirations and contribute substantially to the society towards its upliftment. Now, for this, Miss Florence understood that the next generation of Victorian women, that is the children, especially the daughters, would need a firm and influential example within their own parents to necessitate the rich environment of possibilities of creating and venturing into pursuit, which would make a constructive contribution to the society in particular. And hence, Cassandra pointed out to the women mothering their daughters of the quality of inspiration and role models they would pose to influence and affect the lives of the children positively. So I will just rephrase that again. For this, Miss Florence understood that the next generation of Victorian women, that is children, especially daughters, would need a firm and influential example within their own parents to necessitate the rich environment of possibilities of creating and venturing into pursuits, which would make a constructive contribution to the society in particular. And hence Cassandra pointed out that the women mothering their daughter of the quality of inspiration and role models they would pose to influence and affect the lives of children positively. So these were some of the thoughts that I had collected while reading Cassandra, and I really loved the two opposite poles of thinking of Victorian women who were engaged, one engaged in the domestic life's security and the other engaged in the pursuit of creating a society which had better standards and was more suitable for the progressive world which England was at that time progressing towards. Now, there is a third. These were the two diaries which I read, and as I had mentioned, I also was reading two sets of letters which had been written by W.S. Lambert, who shared his, almost unknowingly shared his naval career through his letters. He was writing his letters to his family and friends, of course, and we see the journey that he makes from a sea cadet, and then he gets promoted to a sub-lieutenant and then to a lieutenant. And we also know about the conditions and the changes which were happening in the Royal Navy at that point of time, because Royal Navy at that point of time was trying its very best to update itself. So there was a lot of gunnery or ammunitions which was involved, and we find in those letters which W.S. Lambert writes to his mother and his brothers that he had to always take special courses for equipping himself to the modernized technological additions which were present in the society. And his naval career has been excellent so far, and he later retired at a very young age, because he had joined the Sea Cadet as a Sea Cadet at a very young age and travelled all across. And he had made quite a lot of observations, and there's a lot of condensed information we find about the nature of Royal Navy, and it was really interesting to read it. Now, of course, I have not finished that entirely. I have just finished two sections of the letter. There are, I believe, further 3 sections which are left, which I will be talking about in my wrap-up. Now, with that, I would mention that this would be my general overview for Lucy's challenge. Now, but I still have the last part of W.S. Lambert's naval career left, so I will be mentioning that in my wrap-up definitely. Now, I would also like to mention, as I had mentioned previously, that I will be doing my wrap-up for Victober pretty late. That probably would be around end of November, because it's festival time here in India, and we are actually quite, I would say tense, but yes, there is a lot of complications which have happened during the pandemic, so we have to be careful, and we also have to do a lot of preparations for Diwali in a very organized way. So I was supposed to be away from booktube from the mid of last week of October, but I believe it has been preponed, and I will probably be away from the 25th of October. So from the 25th till the end of the third week of November, there may not be any activity on this booktube channel. I will try my very best to see if I can keep uploading if I do find the time. I have pre-recorded a couple of my videos, but then the fact is that there are some parts which I would have liked to edit as well, and there were some which I would need a reference to. So I believe it is best that I will do my entire wrap-up after I come back in November. And with that, I would definitely be coming to the end of this video. So it was a beautiful journey to read these two diaries as well as these letters, and it was actually a very good challenge. So I really loved Lucy's challenge, and I thank Lucy for this. It was quite creative, and I learned a lot about not only the Victorian society and the Victorian women, but also about the Royal British Navy and the progress which it made. And with this, I would thank you for joining me today in this video, and hope you have a lovely reading week ahead, and namaste.